Welcome back to the Church Biz Podcast. I'm excited to be here today with Mark Strong, Executive Pastor at the Well Community Church in San Marcos, Texas. Mark, thanks for driving up, I guess, not down, but
Yes.
up. Yeah, good to have you here. Tell us a little bit before we get going about you, your story, and your family, and what should we know about you?
Can I say before we even get there, I am honored to be here just because I love any chance I get to interact with you, Josh, personally. And we've been a client of Church Biz for numbers of years now. And I just want to personally say that's been an incredible experience for
Mhm.
us. Stepping into the role as the executive pastor here at the Well, you guys have been such an incredible support for me. And beyond just the kind of day to day of what you guys do with the numbers and helping us out there, I really value our relationship.
Mhm.
And I know that I call you with questions. You are more than a bookkeeper for us. You guys are a consultant. You are a help when I need to understand things that I might not know. And so we really rely on y'all for
Mhm.
expertise in that. And so I just want to personally say thank you
Mhm.
for being more than just our outsourced bookkeepers. You really are part of our team
Mhm.
that we rely on. So I just want to thank you a ton
Well,
for that.
man, I appreciate that. That's kind to lead off like that, and that's what we hope is that we could be more than just a commodity, but we want to do well with our books, but also be a consultant, a resource for you. So, but thank you for that,
Yeah.
and so yes, we get to work together as a you're specifically one of my clients with
Yes.
Church Biz, but wanted to have you on for that, but also for some other things. But tell us a little bit about your family, kind of your background, what brought you to where you are at the Well?
Yeah, for sure. So, like I said, I'm the executive pastor of ministry and operations at the Well Community Church. I've been doing that since last October, so pretty new into the role. God's kind of had me on a different path before that, which I'll get into here in a little bit. But uh, love Jesus, love my wife. We've been together for 13, coming up on 14
Mm.
years, and we've got 3 kids. So shout out to my kids who I know will be listening to this back. They're 9, 7, and 4, and it's just been a really fun season with them. And so, yeah, that's family life, and yeah, excited to be in this role here. Specifically, I mean, the hats are many. So I wear quite a few hats as the XP there for ministry and operations, but communications and technology is one of
Mm.
those. And I know that's something we're going to be chatting about today.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited to hear more about what you're doing, and we'll share more of that. I'd love to hear a little bit of so you're executive pastor at the Well today. What kind of led you in your career to that role? I'd love to hear a little bit of that story. If you could, the summary version of that story.
Yes, I will keep it brief, but there's a common thread throughout all of this that's been kind of interesting for me to track and look back on to see what God has done in my life that's brought me to this point. So I'm a proud Baylor Bear, Sikkim Bears. And so after that, we went up to do a 1 year residency program up in Branson, Missouri, and ended up staying in Branson at First Baptist Church Branson and getting a job there as the Life Center director. So I was
Mm.
in charge of their gym facilities. And
Okay.
about a year and a half into that, I realized there's not a lot of career mobility in the world of church gym directors, Josh. Well, it was an incredible opportunity to be on staff and learn from great leaders. Just not a huge career play there. And so, had a friend who was there in Branson who was going to be starting a marketing agency, and he asked me, "Hey, do you want to come do this thing with me and start a marketing agency?" And so. And that's what we did. I have a communications background from Baylor. And so, but really a lot of on the job training, jumping
Mm.
in there and serving clients in the tour and travel and hospitality industry. And
Mm.
so we were kind of a toolbox for them, offering branding and design, photography, website development, social media, digital marketing
Mm.
services. And so we got to work with a ton of amazing clients, some city tourism districts, helping connect folks to next steps to the resorts or entertainment folks that we worked with. Yeah, that was that was that role. Then my wife and I transitioned back down here to Texas to be closer to family. So moved to the San Marcos area in 2018 and did some sales there, some online sales before online jobs were much of
Yeah.
a thing.
No, that was gonna a
Little did
couple
I
years
know. I
later.
was like, wow, here we are. And so it was in the new home industry for about 3 years, and then transitioned out of that to and spent the past 5 years at Indeed.com.
Okay.
And so, my primary role, I was a kind of lead global client partner, basically helping implement recruitment automation and AI initiatives to make recruitment faster
Mm,
for enterprise clients who are doing huge hiring campaigns. And so if you look at the common thread between all of those is really helping people move from interest in something to action faster through the right strategies that use clear communication and smarter processes.
mm,
That in the marketing role, I'm helping people find new homes, as well as being at Indeed and working with those large technology
yeah.
implementation campaigns. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been awesome. And I'm really thankful for how God's brought me to a place where I could use those gifts here to serve the local church, which I love and have a huge passion for. And so there's so many people that's either within the church or outside of the church who we can help take a step of engagement. And so I
Mm,
just love helping make
yeah.
processes and have the right tools to do that in a more
Yeah.
efficient way.
All right. So as we talk about this next section, I've first off, I was really excited to see some of the things you're working on. The dashboard that you sent me that was just amazing. We'll get to that here in a little bit. Some of the tools you've been working on, processes for churches to engage their community, to engage their church, are awesome. But one thing that you pointed out as we were talking about this before is that strategy needs to go before the tools that we get to. So I would love to hear a little bit of your thoughts on, as a church thinks through how is it going to engage its community, whether that's through communication or an app or social media, whatever it is. How should we think through strategy
Mm.
before we get to using those actual tools?
Yeah, really good question. I would say there's typically two kind of broad umbrella strategies that come from the Great Commission. That every church has their version or variation of these strategies within their church. And so I'm not here to prescribe what the mission that God has called an individual local church is, but typically what we see is the strategies for engaging people fall under two buckets found within the Great Commission. So you have the go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So typically, this would be we are called to engage with those who are not following Jesus
Mm,
and help them become disciples of Christ. And so that is the kind of first how are we connecting with those who are outside of our church, those who are in our community man, just need the love of Jesus. And so, how do we help them find and follow him? And then the second part of that, teaching them to observe everything that I've
mm,
commanded you. And so the second umbrella strategy is typically how are we helping people as they connect with the church grow and mature in their faith? Like what
mm,
pathways or next steps do we have set up for them? And again, that is varied per church. And the strategy that God calls one church to is going to be different than how he's equipped and called another church to. And so,
yeah.
whatever that vision or that strategy is, it typically falls in those two kind of
Mm,
external outreach and engagement or internal engagement. How are we connecting people with the right next steps? And so there's a couple of tools, if you want to chat about those, that we typically
yeah.
fall in the buckets of external tools and then internal
Yeah.
tools for engagement.
I think that's really helpful to break it down into those things, because sometimes in ministry, it can just feel like everything is out there. And whether we're trying to communicate an announcement about a church picnic or
Hmm.
whatever it is, oftentimes there's so much, or at least I found there was so much to communicate. You didn't know what means to do it. You didn't know where to do it. Is this a website thing? Is this a
Yep.
church app type of thing? But yeah, so I'd love to hear how you've been thinking through those two buckets and how that's helped communication.
Yes,
Yeah.
that'd be awesome. So with the church that I've connected with, here are the kind of the breakdown of tools that we found like are most helpful for those two different buckets, external and internal. Before we get to that though, I would like to talk about what might be the world's most boring podcast topic, and that is your church management system. All
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Your planning center, your rock, your breeze, your subsplash, like whatever it is that a church is using for that. that is really one of the most foundational tools that you have off which you build a lot of these other
Mm,
things. Having the appropriate health and hygiene for your church management system, I might say so far as if there's something that you take away from this podcast, if that's not something that a church is currently focused on or prioritizing, it all starts with that. Some of the tools that we'll talk about that we've been able to build out are off the back of a healthy
mm,
and maintained
yeah.
data system, so to speak, called a church management system. And so that helps with targeted communication. And churches have this information about people who come to their church. They know who's attended, who's come to certain classes, who's in small groups, who is married, who is single, who has kids. Like we have this information. So instead of kind of shotgun messaging out to people, we have the opportunity to be more specific with how we engage
Mm,
people to take next steps. That starts with healthy hygiene of your church management system. We can capture interest in next steps. Those people who are from the outside who take a first step with your church, like what's the actions that we have built in on the back end to make sure that we are collecting that
mm.
information and being responsible with it to engage with them. And then building reports, which we'll talk about dashboards here in a little bit, but that all starts with some data health. And so that CHMS is really kind of the foundational piece that you could build off of
Yeah.
for some of these other tools.
It's really good. Could we talk about specific systems that churches can use? I mean, PCO, Planning Center
Yep.
Online would be one. What do you have any recommendations or thoughts when churches start thinking through a CMHS?
hmm
CMHS, yeah.
Yeah. I'm a big Planning Center fan. All these systems will have pros and cons. And if you get on and talk to their sales team, like they'll all know what
Yeah.
their pros are compared to the other one's cons, right? I feel like Planning Center is perhaps the most complete. I've heard the most people interested in migrating from their current system to Planning Center. So this is not a paid advertisement for
Yeah.
Planning Center, but it's just one that I feel like has the most options that you could work with to like build some of this data health out with and create some good back end workflows and next steps. And so it's not as great if you want integrated media and website and all things into one platform. You'll need to do something different with your kind of external outreach opportunities, but then you could send people to Planning Center and how you manage the people that are in there is pretty great. So
Yeah.
that's one. I've worked with a couple others. Planning Center has been my favorite.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. We're coming more from the giving
hmm
aspect of that management system, but Planning Center has a great giving tool, gives great data, dashboards, exports, so you can build data. And then, I think Planning Center started with services was their first app,
Right.
and then they built groups management and all the different things they have. But I think probably Planning Center, in my opinion, is one of the best donor management systems.
hmm
And so I always advocate for it because
Yes.
we're biased towards the financial aspect of it. But I'd agree with you that it is more of an internal, if we look at those two buckets you talked about, it's more of an internal tool, an engine, although it can connect external, you're probably going to have some supplements with it.
For sure.
Whereas maybe a Subsplash, I think Subsplash might have more app capabilities, and I think I need to brush up on that. But that's another one I will recommend for giving. If you're not going to use PCO giving, Subsplash is a solid second option. So
Yes.
yeah.
No, you're right on there. And I like how you specifically highlighted that there's needs to supplement this. If you're thinking about external engagement strategies, the tool set that we use for that is pretty different. So a couple of things that fall in that bucket of kind of key tools that you use. I mean, first off, there is zero replacement for personal evangelism. So this is not a tech will fix your church
Mm,
conversation. This is everything starts at the core of a heart of your church for personal
mm,
discipleship and
yeah.
evangelism. That should always be number one. But I mean, even those conversations that you're having with people when you invite someone to church, 80 to 85% of people before they come to your church will visit your website,
Mm,
or younger generations are going to check out your social media page. They're going to just basically do a vibe check to
mm,
see is my friend crazy? It's like, what am I about to walk into when I step into the doors here? And so having a website, that is an external, not an internal tool.
mm,
Having social media set up, including YouTube, those are external tools at your disposal. And then your Google business profile. A lot of people will look at reviews on your church, and most of that traffic will go to your Google business profile. And so having that set up, that's a big external engagement tool.
Mm.
And then if you want to step into the world of paid advertising and doing pay-per-click campaigns or social media advertising, like all those are ways that you can engage people that are outside. It's like the most common bucket of tools that people
Mhm.
use for that purpose.
Yeah, that's really good. I think too, probably, I mean, you probably know the statistics better, but after COVID, even more people now are going to your website. They're streaming several either podcasts or watching YouTube videos before they ever step foot in their church. They probably know as much or more about your church than maybe your average just attender from at least what they've seen on the website. So just
They
to,
will form an impression
yeah.
about what they think about your church. The latest stat I saw is that someone will have seen a portion of 6 different messages or sermons
Mhm.
before stepping
Wow.
into the door.
Yeah.
And so the way you present yourself and your YouTube channel, or if you have clips on on your Instagram, like, or if they watch some things in the sermon section on your website, like all those things are contributing to your new front door is not the entrance to your church. It is your website
Mm.
where people are going to make an impression about whether or not they want to step into your doors based on their
Yeah.
engagement in that
Yeah,
space.
I do love that you reminded us that this doesn't mean we're neglecting personal
Oh,
evangelism,
no.
loving our neighbor. But I think the reality is, if you start loving your neighbor and they discover maybe you go to a certain church and you're caring for them, loving them, sharing Jesus with them, at some point they probably are going to go check out the church though, even if you invite them to
Yep.
to come, they'll Google it or something like that. So it's still even can be a bolster towards personal evangelism with some of those people you're meeting, because most people today will go and, at least from the statistics you're showing, and check that out. So
Definitely.
still a vibe check, as you said. So
Yeah,
that's cool.
for sure. And that kind of covers external. Question about internal tools. And one of the primary ways that we're engaging people when they are on our property or they're attenders or part of our community, the primary tools, obviously Sunday announcements remain key, and having your pastor or other announcement formats be a part of the vision casting for next steps for people is essential. Building out a strategy that leverages the right level of attention on Sunday
Mm,
without overloading people, that's a really critical
mm,
communication engagement and next step tool. And then the things that are still king are email and text.
mm,
Both of those are really great opportunities to engage your church. Also, mobile app, I would say that's not for everyone. Mobile app can be one of those shiny tools that
mm,
doesn't fit into your personal strategy. And if you don't have the strategy to the process and people to manage your tools, then maybe it's not the right tool for you.
mm,
Just because you hear about something on a podcast or your friend is doing it well, or you hear another church or you get an advertisement, from on Instagram as you're scrolling, like those, you have to ask the question, can this fit within the process and the people that we have to manage
mm.
these sort of things? Otherwise, it's not really a valuable tool for you. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's kind of one that I'd bucket in that. Can it be done well? Absolutely. Do most churches do it well?
Mm,
No, they do not. So email and text are probably still
yeah.
still king for internal engagement.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm thinking, most churches and especially church plants have an idea that they need some of these pieces, but a lot of what I observe, if you're not intentional about creating a strategy, you're just kind of like, okay, yeah, we're going to do an app because we saw that here, or we're going to have a YouTube page, but we're not sure how that's actually all working together. We're going to have a website, but we're not thinking strategically who's going there or what it's showing or what their experience is like. It seems like part of what you're encouraging us towards is to, yes, these tools are needed and important, but also to create a strategy of we're knowing how those processes are going to work and why we have those different tools doing what they do.
That's correct. I mean, a great example would be a church's website, right? If you go to do a website redesign or someone says, our website hadn't been touched, for 10 years. So time to take a look at that. And the question is, what is the purpose of this website? Am I looking at this through a lens of what I would like on a website and what would be valuable to me? Or am I looking this through the lens of a strategy of when the majority of people who are going to visit this website are people who are not connected to my church, who are
Mm,
looking to see whether or not they want to engage in my
yeah.
church? I mean, that changes what you put on that website. It changes the whole purpose and nature of what type of content that you'd want, how you'd want to lay out the pages, what information would be helpful. So if it's a list of our 10,000 ministries and, where you could find information about that, I'm not sure that that's the audience that you're trying to
Mm,
reach with that specific tool. So, yeah, strategy absolutely governs everything of why you would want to leverage a tool and what specifically you're going to be doing
yeah.
with it.
One of the pain points I had when I was in ministry is I felt like I'm not a communications person, by the way, but
Well, you're
one
doing
of the
great,
well,
Josh. You sure
I
look
can
like you
I can
are.
t- teach, but the strategies and consistent communication is a I have to work. But what I would find is, if I announce something, I would expect everyone in the church would know
Mhm.
about that event. They would have it on their calendar, or if something was on our website, if we posted our theology or whatever, that everyone in our church was going there. And what I learned is that about especially your website is most of the people who are in the church never went to our website.
That's
And
right.
so that's where even coming back to some of your internal tools like the groups management with PCO or an app or whatever it is, that's a totally different conversation than your
Mhm.
website. And really your website, like you said, is for people who are outside your church trying to preview or see, hey, am I going to come set what kind of people are these? What kind of service is this? Is it crazy? Is it sane? What is it?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was for me. I had to learn that lesson of, hey, there's different places that will communicate to different people. I think I've heard this thing. You can tell me if you think this is correct. You have to communicate something 7 times before it's heard. Have you heard that phrase before?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. That is the
So
colloquialism for sure.
yeah.
So, and I find it true. I mean, if you can reinforce your messaging through a couple of different ways, specifically, this is something that is like a take to the bank comms strategy. But if you a wrong message to someone is not neutral, it's net negative. So, if you're announcing something on a Sunday that is irrelevant
Mm,
to 80% of the people that are in the room, that's not a great strategy to engage those people. For example, if you have a parenting workshop that's coming up, or a marriage event that's coming up, and 40% of the people in your audience are married or 20% are parents, and you're going to announce that from a Sunday, you're asking 80% or 60% of your audience to tune you out because that messaging is irrelevant to them. And so, how can we make
mm,
communication more focused to people who need to hear those specific
mm.
messages? Those are the ones that are going to be most effective. And when you reinforce those well, that's when you can really connect people to a right next step for them.
Yeah. I want to ask a very specific question about announcements because it was often a discussion with our staff when I was
Yes.
working at the church I worked at. But do you have a strategy or kind of a framework for how church staffs can understand the announcement slot in their gathering? What is your I'd love to hear your philosophy on that.
Sure. Yeah, I would say the foundation is knowing your culture and
Okay.
understanding like what works within your context and trying things out. Like no one can expect to get it right the first time, even with all of these tools and strategies. Social media, as an example, when we put content out there, we see the response and then we change and optimize
Mm,
accordingly. And so I don't necessarily have a what's the right time in your service. Typically, you want to keep announcements to those that are most relevant for everyone in the audience. And you want them to be less than three. So
mm,
we have in the way that we build out, we have a host moment and we'll talk about this as a tool that we use has been really helpful. But we actually have a communications and campaign calendar where we'll build out key messaging for all of our primary events, campaigns, communication pushes, things like that. And so we will have a standardized way that we're going to share that out with our church, both from email, from the stage, from different things like that. And so we'll build in a few announcements that are relevant to the most people that are in the room. Things like joining a small group, we call them house churches, but joining a small group or house church, being on a serve team, events that impact your whole community. We just did a big Living the Mission campaign. and just talked about ways that everyone in our church can get involved in serving in our big summer kids camp that's coming up. That's an all play situation and relevant to everyone in the room that we'd like them to take a next step with. And so those make the best announcements. And then we also will sprinkle in, we just call them standard announcements or special announcements, where if you can engage your lead communicator or your teaching pastor in helping share a next step, that can be really powerful. So
Mm,
sometimes we'll do the, hey, I want to say something before I say something kind of conversation where it's like an announcement right
yeah.
before the sermon. And we did one of these at right after our Easter service, the follow-up service after our Easter service, where we wanted to encourage those who were second-time guests to join us for our Starting Well class that we have, just to learn more about the church and to start getting connected. And that was a time where Chris, our lead pastor, said, if you're here for the second time, let me engage you intentionally and share a next step with you. So sometimes using those
Yeah.
strategic moments with your lead communicator can be a really impactful
Mm,
way to encourage next steps that someone might miss if you're just doing a standard host announcement
yeah.
moment.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I love the limit of 3. I mean, we've all sat through the end of a service before where there's 6 announcements and 5 have nothing to do with you,
Yeah.
and I get that net negative because you're not, you're not angry, but you're a little bit like, why am I still sitting here? Let me go to lunch or
Yes.
whatever." But, yeah, that's really good. I love the spotlight shared by, your lead pastor or one of your teaching pastors, even just bringing that in to also show that there's a ministry and gospel purpose behind what we're doing, that we're not just doing events or random activities, that this is a part of the people of God being on mission and loving one another well. So bringing that intentionality to, not just from a strategic point, but from a, hey, this is how we operate as a church, and this is important, and to let a second time guest know, hey, we want you to come closer in and connect
Yeah.
to this church family through our starting well class. That's really good.
To
So
layer one other
yeah.
thing in there that's been particularly effective for us, that is doing an interview format for
Mhm.
an announcement, bringing someone on stage. We just did this last week where we brought 2 people who are going through our foundations course, which is our gospel training, disciple making class that helps take a next step for people into our leadership pipeline. We brought a couple of people who are currently doing our foundations program, interviewed them about what their experience is like, and that was really powerful. Anytime you
Mm,
could hear a testimony during our Living the Mission campaign, we're bringing up missionaries, bringing up people who are doing a really good job of everyday personal evangelism, and they're getting to share their
mm,
stories. And oftentimes, that might connect really specifically with someone who's there in the audience, that a way that a host or a lead pastor might not even do. And so the great thing to sprinkle
yeah,
into your announcements is bringing in like real testimonies from
that's
your
good.
people.
That's good. We've talked a little bit about the tools now to kind of accomplish some of these strategies. Anything else you want to say on that aspect of it? The kind of the external, internal tools?
No, I think those are just the main buckets that you should be thinking
Okay.
about is what's our external
Yeah.
engagement strategies, and then how can we use those tools that we chatted about to work towards those
Yeah.
strategies.
As you work with those at the well, and as other churches maybe potentially pursuing to use tools to engage their community and their church, what are some of the challenges that you see churches facing to implement these tools well?
This is a huge question. And I would say typically the type of person who's listening to this is the type of person who's like, yes, I love that. I'm on board with that. How but how do we actually do this in our context? A couple of the challenges specifically that I see, number one, would be just lack of resources. Churches don't have either the time or the people resources to be able to do some of this. And so they might say, man, this is really important. I would love to have a more engaging social media strategy as an outreach strategy specifically, or I would love for our website to be more guest friendly, but we just don't have the finances. We don't have the people on our team that we could even do that. And so the result of that leads to digital deprioritization. It's not that it's not important, but that churches just go, that's, Z on my A to Z list of
Yeah.
things to do. And that's just where we're at. and and I understand that that's okay, and that's the reality of where churches are at. As an executive pastor, I have to prioritize where our resources are going to most effectively help meet our strategy, and so that's understandable. But that's one challenge: lack of resources. The second is just lack of expertise. So like people know it's a need, and so they'll assign someone on their team to do it, but that someone is just like, well, you're the youngest on the team, so you could do social media, or they'll, here, you seem to, out of the most of us, have bandwidth. So why don't you kind of focus on some of these things? Just like a lack of expertise that's there. Or you spread the load between several different people. And those people, they really signed up to do ministry work. They're like, I'm not a comm strategist here. I don't know. And so what you start to feel is that when you do assign these things out, the lack of expertise leads to people feeling like they're stretched thin, where it's like, man, I just got another thing that's on my to-do that's not really in my wheelhouse at all. I'd much rather be prioritizing people. I'd much rather be building out volunteers. I'd much rather be multiplying disciples and pouring into leaders. And now I've got to like figure this website thing out. It's just a drain to them. And the staff team feels really stretched thin when you kind of just assign it out.
Mm,
So those are probably two of the biggest: lack of resources, lack of
mm,
expertise. The third one that I see a lot is lack of consistency, which really is churches, either they don't have an established brand identity. And by that, I just mean the way your church looks and sounds consistently. And so there's a lack of that. Or there's no one that enforces that across the board. And so it just leads to communication chaos.
mm,
And really, if this is something that someone on the other side of this mic is feeling, it looks like this in your church. It looks like you're feeling like five different organizations from a communications perspective. Like the youth are just doing their thing and the small groups are doing their thing, and there's no cohesion to what's happening. It's ministry silos is
mm.
really what that looks like. And so instead of looking and sounding like one cohesive church, those who are feeling this lack of consistency know exactly what I'm talking about. We're like, oh, this is us. Like this feels like everyone's just kind of doing their own thing. And so that's a big one that is a challenge for churches on this front. And then, I mean, the last one, and we talked about it a ton, but just lack of strategic clarity, that churches aren't sure exactly what they're trying to accomplish, and specifically how they're going to measure whether they're doing what they're trying to accomplish. And so that just leads to like dataless direction.
Mm,
Man, with this tools and the systems that we have available to us, there are tons of opportunities to use that very rich data to inform discipleship decisions, to inform financial decisions. Yeah, it just leads to this lack of strategic clarity. Can oftentimes lead to, I mean, we're not even sure what we're supposed to measure or how, and so yeah, how we know whether we're doing a good job is kind of anyone's guess, or it comes down to how I feel about it,
yeah,
Josh. It's like, oh,
yeah,
I feel like this is going well. Like, well, what does your data tell you? You're not really sure.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I feel like I communicated that really well when I
yes,
mentioned it that one
yes.
Sunday,
I
but
feel like we'll have a huge turnout for this
yeah,
event.
yeah,
I feel like a lot of guests will like our website and start coming. Like, you don't really
yeah,
have a way of measuring or knowing that, and at least kind of
yeah.
directionless decision making.
Well, going back to what you said, whenever you're spread thin and you don't really have the expertise or resources to effectively create a plan or think through these things, because I think that is a gift that people have. I think you have that gift. Then you kind of just, that's all you have is you kind of got to go with your gut,
Yeah.
and your gut, maybe it's right, but likely it's, not even close to the reality of what, is actually going on. So
Yes.
that's really helpful. I know when so you started at the Well officially on staff back in October 2025.
That's right.
You've been connected to the Well longer for quite a while, correct?
That's right. Since 2020, the well got planted in 2020 from an awesome church out of Huntsville called University Heights Baptist Church. So we're a multi-generational
Yeah.
church with an intentional and biased investment in the college campus at
Yeah.
Texas State. And so yeah, I got connected the year that the church came to plant there as just friends and neighbors with our lead pastor, and then have been able to serve in numbers of contexts since then. past couple of years have been able to serve as an elder, and then officially on staff. God keeps merging the paths
Yeah,
together with
that's
me and the
awesome.
well. So
Well, I was thinking, the well is a church plant, and I'm sure that, these strategies probably just weren't they don't just appear from day one, at least from my experience. So I'm curious, and you've shared a little bit about what you've done at the well, but as you saw the needs and some of these problems in your own church context, what are some of the solutions and ways you've seen that? Both the tools that you've used and then also the outcomes of how that has impacted ministry at the well. Any examples or things you can share there?
yeah, I can share about three that I think have been particularly impactful for our context and adoptable for anyone who's listening with some level of intentionality. The first would be that we just did a refresh of our website specifically with a focus on engaging guests. Josh, could you guess on a church website, what are the top
Mm,
visited pages? If
mm.
you had Google Analytics set up and you're able to tell, what are the top visited pages of a church's website?
Okay, well, I would assume the homepage is your landing there. I'm just gonna go with what I would check out. I
Yeah.
usually go to about and then I'm looking at leadership. But so I don't know, how's that line up with
Yes. So it's all of those discovery pages. The way you said it is perfect. It's what would I check out if I was going to go learn something about a church? So it's your homepage, obviously. It is if you have a join us on Sunday or a plan a visit page, those are very highly visited pages of your website. Your about page is huge. And depending on how you break that up, if you have an about that's separate from beliefs or a team or other things, or if those might all be on the same type of page, those are the pages that are visited more frequently
mm,
than anything. And so we just redid our website with the focus on answering what are the questions that people are going to be asking when they're going to come on site. And so we made on our join us on Sunday page, we have a list of FAQs. How long is the service? What can I expect in during this service? Like, what do you have for kids? All those very common questions that people ask. And that's been really intentional and helpful for us. We see, we have a time when we're just engaging people on Sunday, asking, "Oh, how long you been connected to the well?" "Oh, we just started coming." "Great. What brought you here?" And there is a really healthy split for us right now that I hear regularly between a friend invited me or I found you guys through your website. I
mm,
found you guys online, checked it out. You seem like a great church. And so, man, we're really seeing the results of that being put into place where people are finding our website and seeing that as a place where they could see themselves checking out and
mm,
stepping in the door for the first time.
yeah.
So, yeah, that's been a big project, but one that's been bringing a ton of fruit for us. Second one, I mentioned it before, but our communication and campaign calendar.
Okay.
So, how do I describe this? It's our system for organizing the promotion schedule and the key messaging and assets across all of our communication
Mm,
campaigns. It's one big spreadsheet for us right now, but it lists everything that's coming up for the next 4 months, 6 months. And on that sheet, it has here's how you should talk about that. If you're sending out this in an email or a text or a Sunday announcement, here's what we're saying. Here's the key way that we're engaging people and highlighting this action, this next step, this event. It's going to have where our assets live, if we have designed
mm,
assets or photos or videos or things that are related to that. And then it has what specific channels is this messaging going out to and when?
mm,
And that is filterable by a certain time frame. So you could say next week, let's filter what is coming out across all our platforms for our church. And so this is the way we know, okay, our announcements, we have no more than three. Oh, we can't prioritize talking about that right now because we are already having a big push for this. We don't want to overload people with next steps,
mm,
or we don't want to push out duplicate messaging where someone's getting nailed with 5 emails and 3 texts in a week. Like that's way too heavy and for people to absorb. And so this has been a really helpful system for us managing what goes out to whom and when. Yeah.
yeah.
And then the last one, I know this is one of your favorites that I sent over to you, and because it involves a lot of the excellent data that you send. But we've built out a dashboard that lives on our website and it's our ministry and our financial health dashboards. And so these are basically, any listener could go check these out. thewellsmtx.org/health. And these are interactive dashboards that basically track key metrics that we're watching for discipleship health and for financial health.
Mm.
And so, yeah, we use this data based off of what you guys send, what we know about the people that have taken next steps in Planning Center, and kind of compound that into what does our Sunday attendance look like? What are the serve team metrics that we're watching? What are the numbers of people that we have in house churches versus how many we have attend on a Sunday? All those kind of key discipleship metrics. We're
Mm.
watching trends month over month and quarter over quarter to say how or where do we need to step into discipleship conversations that help move the needle towards the mission that God's calling our
Yeah.
church to. And the same thing with the financial health dashboard. Like, where are we at right now? And can we empower our key stakeholders, our staff team, our board and elders, our partners or members, with information that's transparent, clear, and timely about what the financial health of our church really is. So, yeah, we just walked through these dashboards yesterday in our board elder meeting, and they were so helpful.
Mm.
We were able to clearly see a picture of where we're as a church in terms of the key metrics that God is calling us to pursue, and make some determinations about, okay, what do we need to prioritize in our teaching schedule, or to build out, events or next steps that help disciple people further towards these things based on the trends that we're
Yeah.
seeing. So,
I love that, man. I love that, you said this earlier, but you're getting data. Data's not necessarily driving you. You're following Jesus, but your data gives you an objective reflection of what's happening in the life of the church so you can respond and make decisions with wisdom based on objective data rather than what I was, like we were saying earlier. Oh, I feel like the church is doing okay or not so good. You might be feeling like, gosh, nothing's happening. But you look at the data and you realize, oh, people are getting connected. New people are joining in, are visiting. Giving is going up. And those metrics all represent people and stories that are fruits of what God is doing that you can also celebrate, make decisions for. So I love that. I love clarity and just objective measures. We can ask, are we being faithful? Are we responding? Are we, doing what we can within our responsibilities? Yeah.
I'll give you a real time example. We had a great Easter Sunday, and we got to see numbers of people be baptized. But when we were as an elder team looking at our numbers from the last quarter, we were lower in baptisms. And what we realized with that is not that gospel conversations weren't happening, but we really didn't have a systematic way to approach encouraging people to take a next step of baptism. And so that's been a kind of discipleship gap for us, not on the evangelism side, but in encouraging people when and how to take a next step of being baptized. And so then that became a strategic priority for us in this next upcoming 120 days to say, how can we better disciple people through messaging or putting next steps in front of them and say, man, if you've trusted Jesus, you haven't been baptized, that's a great next step for you. And so I truly believe that as we pray through that and as God brings the fruit, we're going to see more baptisms over the next 6 months. And that will be because we're able to see what's going on here, use that as a way to make a discipleship decision, encourage people to take next steps into faith and obedience that God's called them to.
That's awesome. That's great. It's so good that, you're able to see not, hey, we feel like there's a problem, because you might in your feelings misdiagnose a problem, but you've got data. You identified, hey, where's the gap? Where's the gap in our process? Let's prayerfully respond to that and pray that God would produce fruit through that. So that's awesome, man.
Yep.
Love it. And if you can go check out, I'll put a link on this to y'all's dashboard. And if you want to go check it out, you can. Y'all, that's just public, I guess. So anyone in the church can see all that.
We share it for our partners. Don't make it a main link on our website by any means.
It's not in the about, so you don't recommend. Yeah,
we'll send it out to our partners on a
Okay.
quarterly basis. But we do try to be transparent with that information so people can ask questions, and we invite that. We want transparency. So,
Well, I think especially for your partners, it's great for them to be reminded of here's the things we're measuring. Here's the things we care about. What we care about, we measure that, and we want to
mhm.
be faithful to doing our part, to working hard towards those ends. So I love that. We'll share it if it's appropriate. If it's not, then those who are really interested will go find it from the
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
mentions.
Have
So
them reach out to
you
me.
can
I
let
can
me
send
know.
it to
Man.
them
Yeah.
personally.
So, so as we kind of wrap up here, two more things I'd like to discuss. One is, there's so many. We didn't even touch all of the tools or strategies or things we could. There's
Mhm.
so many things to talk about. But if you were to give us 2 to 3 easy next steps for anyone listening to kind of grow in this area of engaging their community, engaging their church, what would your tips be for that?
That's a good question. These are going to be a little bit broad because the listeners
Yeah.
are a broad audience. And
Yeah.
so I would say that someone who's listened to this point would probably goes, I already know some things that I would need to make as the next step, but a couple of general like takeaways. One would be, let's just like do these in do's and don'ts. A don't would be don't run out and just start doing things. Like, don't run out and be like, oh, I've felt the pressure to get a social media page like more active. So like now I'm feeling even more pressure to just go out and do
Hmm.
that. Or we need to redo our website right away, or like whatever that is. Don't just run out and start doing stuff. The do associated with that would be do ask yourself, what are we trying to accomplish? And are our current tools and processes getting us there? Before you go out and do anything, take a step back and ask those strategy questions. And you may find that your tools and processes as a church are accomplishing the strategy that God has given you to accomplish. And so change nothing. Keep doing what you're doing. Like this is not a you need all of these things in order to accomplish the mission, but this is a chance to go, let's strategically pause and ask, are the tools and the resources and the processes that we have in place helping to accomplish what God is calling our church to
Hmm.
accomplish? And so that is the first kind of set of do's and don'ts. The second would be this: don't get so overwhelmed that you do nothing. So someone who may be listening to this and is like, wow, we talked about a lot. We talked about church management systems. We talked about our website. We talked about social media. We talked about texting. We don't have texting set up for our church. Like, don't get so overwhelmed that you just sit and like, well, I'm just not going to do anything. What I would encourage people to do is to identify 1 to 2 priorities within the strategy and the mission that God's called that church to, and then say, man, what is a practical step that I could make towards that 1 or 2 priorities? And if
Hmm.
someone realizes that their planning center is long overdue for an update and a cleanup, then maybe that's a I'm going to start a conversation with the right person on staff to say, "Man, this seems like over the next 6 months something that we could prioritize if we want to move in this direction." Or yeah, it may be like to find a person who could help you with a website or social media. What's like one next step
Yeah.
that you can go like, this would be important for us. This is a step we could take. Let's do it there. And then the last don't would be, but don't feel like you have to do it alone. God has gifted and wired all of us very differently, given us different passions, different experiences, different gift sets. And so if you're in the staff stretched thin category where you're like, I'm already feeling this, like don't feel like this has to be another thing on your shoulders or on your to-do list to do. I would just stop and pray and ask the Lord to bring you someone who could partner with you in that work. Maybe it's someone with that expertise in your church who could be a volunteer. Maybe it is like a third party outside resource that you bring in and says like, I would love to engage someone to help me through this. Like, man, we haven't had someone who's sat in that communications and strategy and engagement space for us, but we know it's a need.
Mm.
And maybe the next step is just to engage someone to help you with that. But yeah, I would just say reach out. Don't feel like you have to do it alone.
Yeah. That's really good. Well, I do want to mention that, as we've been talking about this, one of the things that you're launching is you've got a website, askmarkstrong.com. And so along with the ministry you're doing at the Well, you're also starting to branch into helping churches with this as well. So even as they're looking for people to ask to, I know you didn't ask me to do this, but I want to commend you and say, man, I think you think through this stuff really well. I've known the Well San Marcos for, I guess we've been working together for maybe 4 years. So
Yeah.
I've seen as you came in, even some of the improvements in communication and how you've helped them. And to see Chris, shout out to Chris, his, just a sigh of relief, even as you've stepped in
Yeah.
with more of your gifts. So I've seen how you've benefited that local church. And I'm really excited that you're stepping into helping other churches think through this through your, you call it consulting. How would you describe kind of what you're launching with askmarkstrong.com?
Sure. I would just say it'd be an honor to help churches think through how they're engaging people both outside their church and inside their church. And so just like no church has a one size fits all strategy, this is not a one size fits all approach. Churches might have very different needs. And so I just would love to equip people with insights that I've been able to gain over past 15 years in corporate ministry, in corporate world, helping people engage with technology and take those next steps and put that to work for the kingdom. Say,
Yeah.
how can we bless and benefit your community and your church by helping people identify and take the right next step of faith and obedience for them? And so, yeah, just helping churches think strategically about that, as well as helping execute some of that. Like if you don't have the people on your team who are able to do some of this work, be happy to partner with churches
Yeah.
and looking at that and saying, "Well, what can we help you get off the ground that's going to further the mission that God's called you to?"
Yeah. I love that. I mean, we work with over 175 churches and ministries and nonprofits, and it is such a need. I mean, financial help is such a need, but also
Mhm.
just that communication, the strategy, the tools, and it's an ever changing environment as well with AI and all the things that are
Oh
launching. And
yeah.
so I can imagine many people, whether they're at a nonprofit or a church or even some small businesses like us at Church. But I mean, I do a lot of our communication stuff, and
Yes.
I'm like, hey, Mark, like, you give me some secrets there. But I'm so excited you're doing that. And just to even say to any of our clients at Church Biz that are listening, we would love to see you, if you feel like you need help in this area, if it's a weakness, if it's a pain point, reach out to Mark. Like, we trust you. Love the minute. He's a dude that's doing the ministry, loving people well on Jesus's mission, and you want to use those gifts beyond the local church to help other ministries and nonprofits. So I'm excited to see what partnerships could
Yeah,
emerge,
man.
and if you could get some of our church's giving system, get them on a good giving platform. No, I was just kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
No
Let's do
pressure
it.
there. Might be a little biased, but love it. But they can, if you're interested in learning more about that, you can check out askmarkstrong.com. You can reach out to me if you or what Church Biz, and we'll connect you with Mark. But we're just prayerfully, excited to see what God does through that.
Yeah,
So
praise God, man. We just
yeah.
love to see churches grow in this area. It's a passion and an honor to get to work in that
Yeah,
space.
so it's definitely a need. So okay, so we've covered a lot on each podcast. At the end of the podcast, we do fun time, which is
Fun
kind of
time.
just where we relax and ask a few fun questions. So I've got two for you.
Hey, that last,
Um,
30 minutes, that was fun for me.
Okay, yeah,
I
yeah.
gotta say,
Well,
that
I
was
know.
my
And-
communication strategy. That's my
and-
fun time, Josh.
And you said at the beginning, this might be boring. I was like, do you know what podcast you're on? Like, we're talking about expense management, receipts, and like, I think your
So we
stuff
just spiced it up.
You're
Cutting
at
edge.
So my two fun time questions, and you kind of gave away the answer to this first one, but I'll ask it. So your favorite sports team, who do you follow? What are you doing sports wise? And then the second question will be, if we were to go to San Marcos today for lunch, where are we going for lunch? Where are you recommending? So start with sports teams, and then give us a recommendation for food in San Marcos.
Sports teams, got to back the Bears, man.
Okay.
Baylor Bears are my team. I don't do a lot of professional sport watching, to be straight honest with you. So when it comes time for basketball season, which was a bit of a drag to watch this year, as well as football season, I'm a Bears guy. What I do is I just have a standard low expectation
Okay.
for the Bears. Okay. And then if we overperform, happy as a lark over here.
Yeah.
If we perform at a low expectation level, no harm, no foul. Okay. I
Yeah.
just already expecting it. And so, yeah, I do love and support the Bears, and the boys we got to go to a basketball game together this past season. And it was so fun
That's
to have
cool.
them in that environment. And so, yeah.
New arena
But,
this year or last year? I think they
yeah,
won it
this was
last
last
year.
year.
Yeah.
We got a new arena, and so Foster Pavilion, fun place,
Yeah.
loud place. Got to watch 2 games there this year, and it's super
Yeah.
fun. So I really
So I'm a Texas Tech grad, Texas Tech fan, diehard. I think we have a lot in common as a Baylor fan and a Texas Tech fan.
Yep.
We both know what it's like to have programs that have been at the bottom. You guys, though, I mean, you guys you won the national championship in basketball in 2021.
That was
Maybe one of the
exhilarating.
greatest teams of the last 25 years. That team with
Your words, not mine.
I mean,
They were
it was
great.
awesome.
Yep.
Probably would have won the COVID season that got canceled too if they. I mean, they were there. I think they were number one that year.
They
So
were. Yep.
props to Baylor basketball.
Yes, got that championship there. Yeah, that's awesome. So just can't expect the boys to do it every year,
Yeah.
especially with the landscape of how things have changed in sports. I mean, we had literally an entire new team this year come in. So
Yeah.
everyone left for the portal or the NBA, and then whole new team came
Yeah.
in for basketball. So it's a new world out there.
That's where Texas Tech is in the process of purchasing their new team right now. So that's college sports, I guess.
That's where it's at right
But
now.
okay, what's where are we going to eat if we're in San Marcos today for lunch?
Dude, this is such a loaded question because I'm a very value driven person. Okay. And that
Okay.
doesn't mean low quality, low costs. That means I would like there to be, if it's going to be good, that's great. But there has to be some level of like cost control in there for me. So I am, as a good executive pastor does, constantly evaluating the put versus the cost there. And so there's a couple of places that I like. I think an underrated one is North Street. North
Okay.
Street. It's a like Indian and Indian fusion. So they have these forbidden tacos there that are very, very good.
Okay.
And
Wow.
so like North Street is an A+ recommendation. Also a huge Fresco guy. Like if you're just looking for good grain or protein bowls, shout out to Andrew at Fresco. That
Okay.
is that's a regular lunch stop for me that I hit up most frequently. Date night place, venture a little bit out of San Marcos, go to the Grist Mill in
Okay.
Green. The Grist Mill is, look it up, check it out. It is right there on the river, the coolest building. I mean, Green, next to Green Hall. So it's like all of that, Central Texas, classic environment, really fun, very crowded, but super fun and like really great onion rings.
Good stuff. Good stuff, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. For those of you listening, I'll put links and resources in the podcast post. That's all we have for today. Mark, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much, man. It's a joy to be here.